The front door opened with that slow, cautious creak I'd come to associate with late nights she didn't want to explain. I looked up from the couch. 1:40 a.m. Kelsey stepped inside like she was trying not to wake anyone, even though she knew I was still awake. She wasn't expecting to see me sitting there, legs crossed, TV off, room silent. Her jacket was half off her shoulder, her hair just slightly undone, but too styled to be the result of a girl's night. She held a small backpack, not her usual purse, with a faint but unmistakable smudge of lipstick on the strap. Dark red. Not hers. Kelsey wore lighter tones. Nude, rose, sometimes peach. This was the kind of red that said night out with someone who wasn't supposed to leave evidence behind. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her. She froze for half a second, as if weighing how to enter the moment. Then she softened her shoulders, let out a loud sigh, and gave me a weak smile. "Hey, you're still up?" "Yeah," I said. My voice came out lower than I meant. "Couldn't sleep." She nodded like that made sense. Like everything made sense. She crossed the living room slowly, and as she passed me, I caught it. Not her perfume. Something sharper. Men's cologne. A clean, spicy scent. Expensive. And familiar. I'd smelled it once before, faintly, inside a stranger's car parked just outside our house one morning when she came back from errands. "What time is it?" she asked casually, setting her backpack down on the kitchen island. 1:45. Her lips parted slightly, as if she was going to say something, but she didn't. Instead, she moved toward the coat rack and peeled off her jacket. That same scent, the one that wasn't hers, hit me again. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah. It was just a long night," she said with a yawn she didn't feel. The girls' thing turned into a mess. Trina got all emotional about her breakup, and then Melissa locked her keys in the car. I swear it was chaos. I stood up slowly, walked to the kitchen where she was pouring herself water. She avoided looking at me. "Whose lipstick is that?" I asked, pointing to the mark on her backpack. She glanced at it, just for a beat. Her eyes flicked away too quickly. "Oh, that? One of the girls, probably. I think Vanessa had on a similar shade. She hugged me like 3 times tonight." "You sure?" She gave me a look then. That sharp, almost offended look. The one she used when she wanted me to back down. "What are you implying?" "I'm not implying anything. Just asking. You don't trust me now?" Her voice raised slightly. "Seriously, I go out with my friends, come home late, and now you're checking my bag for evidence like I'm a suspect?" "I'm not checking anything. It's right there." She scoffed and set her glass down harder than necessary. "This is exactly what I mean," she said. "You always do this. Every time I try to have a life outside of you, you treat me like I'm sneaking off to cheat." I didn't say anything right away, just watched her. Her shoulders tightened. "It's exhausting," she added. "I spend one night out and I come home to this. Surveillance energy. You're sitting in the dark like some investigator from Dateline." "I was waiting." "For what? To catch me in something?" "To see you." "Don't play innocent. You've been acting weird lately. Distant. Cold. And now this? You think this is healthy?" Her voice was rising now, louder than it needed to be for 2 people standing 4 feet apart. That was her tell, going on the offensive. Redirect. Shift. Make me the problem. "You said you were at Trina's," I said. "I was." "She lives in Eastfield." "Yeah. You texted me from there 40 minutes ago." "Okay. And that's over an hour away." She blinked, just for a split second, then recovered. "There was traffic. At 1 a.m. There was construction on the bridge. I checked. No closures tonight." "Wow," she snapped, throwing her hands up. "So you're checking road reports now? What's next, tracking my location?" "No," I said calmly. "I just noticed the timeline doesn't add up." She stepped toward me, arms crossed, the water glass still sitting between us, now warming under the kitchen light. "I don't like what you're doing right now," she said lower now. "This isn't okay. You're being manipulative. I raised an eyebrow. I'm being manipulative. Yes. She nodded hard. You're creating a story based on nothing. Just jealousy. You've always been like this. Possessive. That hit harder than I expected. I've never stopped you from going out. Doesn't mean you don't punish me for it. Sitting up waiting, interrogating me when I come home, making me feel like I've done something wrong when all I did was be there for my friends. I opened my mouth to reply but stopped myself. I looked at her. Her face was flushed, not from cold or embarrassment but effort. The effort of performing a version of events she needed me to believe. She looked tired, but not like someone who spent the evening with old friends. She looked tired from managing a lie. My eyes dropped to her wrist. A faint smudge of something metallic. Was it glitter? Makeup shimmer? Again, not hers. She didn't wear that kind of thing. Do you want to check my phone? She said suddenly. Is that what this is really about? Just say it. I stayed quiet. She snorted. Unbelievable. I noticed she hadn't taken off her earrings yet. Big, silver hoops. Too bold for her usual casual wine night with the girls look. And her nails were freshly done. A new shade taupe, glossy. I hadn't seen it yesterday. When did you get your nails done? What? Your nails. They weren't like that yesterday. She looked down at her hands like she had forgotten them. I went during lunch today. I nodded. And the earrings? Kelsey's allowed to dress up for a night out, right? Or should I check with you first from now on? Do you hear yourself? I said finally. This whole thing. How you're flipping it all on me. Because you're being insane. I told you where I was. If you don't trust me, maybe this relationship isn't working. There it was. I took a breath, stepping back slightly. Her eyes followed me, still full of fire. She thought she was winning this exchange. That she had somehow thrown me off the scent by being louder, more hurt, more wounded than me. I never said I didn't trust you, I said quietly. I said something didn't add up. Same thing, she muttered. No, it's not. But your reaction tells me enough. That stopped her. She looked down at the floor, just for a moment, collected herself, then looked back up with a new expression, softer, contrite but calculated. A different mask. I'm sorry, she said suddenly. This week has just been so heavy. I'm tired. Maybe I overreacted. But it feels like you've already made up your mind about me. I haven't. Then please stop treating me like I'm lying to you, because I'm not. She said it with such conviction I almost questioned what I saw. Almost. But I didn't forget the smell on her jacket, or the lipstick, or the time gap, or the flicker of panic in her face when I mentioned Eastfield. She was acting like I was the one losing grip, like her story made sense and my mind was just paranoid. But it didn't, and I wasn't. She went upstairs not long after that. Said she was exhausted. Left the backpack downstairs. I stayed up another hour just sitting there, thinking. The room was dark again, quiet, still smelling faintly of cologne I didn't own. After Kelsey went upstairs that night, I stayed in the kitchen alone, the hum of the refrigerator sounding louder than it ever had before. Her backpack sat where she dropped it, like it had nothing to hide. But it did. I didn't touch it. Not then. I didn't need to, because my mind was already spinning with 100 memories I had pushed aside. And now they all started lining up like dominoes, each one tipping into the next, all pointing toward the same truth. The first one that came back to me was the phone. That second phone she kept buried between sweaters in the back of the hall closet. I found it by accident almost 6 months ago. She was in the shower, and I'd been trying to find her old college sweatshirt. I pulled out a stack of folded clothes and heard the distinct thud of something plastic hitting wood. I thought it was her work phone at first. When I asked her about it later, she didn't even flinch. Said it was a work line for client calls. But she's not in real estate. She's not a consultant. She's a graphic designer. Freelance. No team. No boss. No reason for a separate number. I remember standing there, holding that phone, and asking her what client had a 2 a.m. text thread titled, "You up?" She snatched it out of my hand and told me I was invading her privacy. And I believed her. I remember laughing it off later, telling myself I was just being possessive, that I trusted her. That one text didn't mean anything. But it wasn't just one thing, was it? There were those weird bank charges in Ashland, an hour north. Places I'd never heard of. Restaurants with fancy names. Boutique gas stations. And then there was that one spa transaction. Not some local chain either, but a high-end wellness retreat I know for a fact she never mentioned. I brought it up once. She said it must have been a billing error, maybe even identity theft. I let it go. She made me feel like I was being dramatic. I remember how she changed all her passwords, one by one, over the course of a month. At first, she said it was for security, that she read an article about how couples should have boundaries, and that she wasn't hiding anything, it was just healthy to keep some space. I nodded, agreed, tried to be modern, trusting, but her browser history was wiped almost every day. She started coming home with stories that didn't fit. Said she had meetings at places that didn't make sense for her job. Said she was working with a group of local artists on a collaborative exhibit. I even offered to come support her one weekend. She looked me dead in the eye and said it was private. Members only. Then there were the changes in her appearance. She started getting her hair done more frequently. Subtle changes, just a bit more volume. A new gloss, a sharper cut. She said it was for confidence. That made sense. But then the gym sessions started. Late-night yoga classes. Weekend fitness meetups. At first, I thought she was just trying to focus on her health. But she never invited me to come with her. I offered once. She said, "It's kind of a thing I do with the girls. You'd feel out of place." Every time I asked a follow-up question, she got defensive. Not loud, not angry, just distant, cold. Another thing came back to me then, as I sat alone at the kitchen island, that same cologne still faint in the air. The message from earlier that day. A simple text, "At Trina's. Don't worry." And I didn't. Not at first. But when she walked through that door just 40 minutes later, crying, flustered, her mascara smudged, with the same lie about car trouble and girls being a mess, I realized the geography didn't make sense. Trina lives across the county. I'd driven there before. It's a solid hour. Even with no traffic. She couldn't have made it home in time. But I didn't call her on it. Not then. Because that's the thing about suspicion, it starts slow. Creeps in, whispering that maybe you're just being insecure. That maybe you're wrong. And when you love someone, you want to be wrong. You hope you are. You talk yourself out of what your gut already knows. But now, with everything laid out in my mind, the image was becoming impossible to ignore. I remembered her sudden obsession with privacy. How she started locking her phone. Not just locking it, but hiding it. Turning the screen away when I walked by. Setting it to silent. Taking it with her into the bathroom. Sleeping with it face down. She used to leave it on the nightstand without thinking. Not anymore. And then there was the email account I didn't recognize on our shared tablet. One night she left it open. The name was random, some variation of her initials and a string of numbers. I clicked on it out of curiosity, thinking maybe it was for work. It wasn't. The inbox was empty, but the sent folder had one draft. Just one. Half-written. Addressed to someone named R. It simply read, "I think he's starting to suspect. We need to be more careful." I closed the tab before I finished reading it. I didn't even mention it the next morning. I convinced myself it was just something old. Maybe from years ago. Maybe not even meant for me to see. Maybe, God, I was so good at lying to myself. She stopped wearing her wedding ring 2 months ago. Said it was getting loose. Said she was afraid of losing it. I offered to get it resized. She said she'd do it herself. Said she already scheduled it. But she never did. I checked. She started wearing new jewelry instead. Thin silver chains. Nothing like the things I used to buy her. There was one night, maybe a month back, when I came home early from a weekend trip. My train arrived ahead of schedule and I didn't text her. I thought I'd surprise her. I unlocked the front door and heard music playing from upstairs. Music she didn't usually listen to. Low and sultry. I remember calling her name and the way the music stopped abruptly. She came down a few minutes later, flushed, wearing a bathrobe, saying she had just gotten out of the shower. There was no steam. The bathroom was dry. When I asked about it later, she brushed it off. Said I scared her. Said it was weird to come home early without warning. That she needed personal time too. But it wasn't just the lies. It was the mood. The way she looked at me changed. There was a shift I didn't want to name. She used to ask about my day, touch my shoulder in passing, kiss me on the cheek while I made coffee. But those little gestures stopped. She became distant, cordial, like I was a roommate. Someone she lived with, not someone she loved. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd give me one-word answers. I'd try to make plans, and she'd suddenly be booked. She stopped laughing at my jokes. Stopped teasing me the way she used to. Her presence in the room became something I had to earn. And even then, I only got fragments. And I ignored it. Because it's easier to believe everything is okay when the alternative means your life is unraveling. I wanted to believe she was just stressed, burnt out. I told myself she needed space, that it was just a phase, that I was overthinking it all. But now, sitting alone in the same room where we used to share morning coffee and late-night wine, the truth felt like a wave I'd been trying to hold back with my bare hands. Everything made sense now. Every story, every excuse, every missing piece had found its place. This wasn't random. This wasn't a misunderstanding. She hadn't just slipped into someone else's arms by accident. She had been planning an exit. Piece by piece, she had been building a path out of our life. Hiding messages, shifting routines, testing boundaries. Laying groundwork for a story where she was the misunderstood wife, trapped with a man who didn't trust her. And tonight, when she turned my questions into accusations, when she *p*nized my concern and made it about control, that was her test run. Her narrative. She wasn't just cheating. She was preparing a version of reality where I was the villain, so that when the truth came out, she'd already have her defense in place. But I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't jealous. I was finally awake. I woke up the next morning with the same uneasy heaviness lodged in my chest, the kind that makes every breath feel borrowed. Everything from the night before replayed in loops. The lipstick smear, the unfamiliar cologne, the impossible timeline. I kept telling myself there had to be another explanation. Something rational. Something that meant my wife hadn't been out with someone else. But no amount of rationalizing could stop the way I felt, or the way the pieces were beginning to fit together in a shape I didn't want to recognize. When she left for what she called her Pilates class, a phrase that had started to sound more like a punchline than an explanation, I found myself walking into the hallway closet. I didn't plan to. My feet just carried me there as if the rest of me had finally gotten tired of hoping I was wrong. That second phone was exactly where it had always been. Tucked between stacks of sweaters she rarely wore, positioned like she wanted it out of the way, but not truly hidden. It buzzed as I touched it, the screen lighting up with the kind of casual cruelty only truth can deliver. A notification glowed across the lock screen. River Loft stay booking confirmed. Arrival time, 6 a.m. 2 guests. For a moment, I just stared at it, waiting for the world to make sense again. She wasn't even home at 6 this morning. She had slipped into bed later, claiming she couldn't sleep. But she hadn't been there at dawn. She'd been where this booking told me she was. My hands moved on their own as I unlocked the phone. She had changed the code once months ago, but she had a bad habit. Convenience always won over secrecy. The same 4-digit number she used for everything important to her. Apparently, this secret life qualified. Inside her email, the confirmation sat right at the top. A cabin by the river, full amenities, early check-in. Booked for 2. Paid through our joint account. My money, her weekend getaway with another man. But the wrecking blow came next. I saw 2 more reservations in the inbox. One was for a lakeside cabin under the name D.M. The same initials I recognized from a hidden folder of photos she thought she'd deleted. A man she had captured in a candid *T at some rooftop bar. She wasn't in the selfie, not directly. But her reflection was visible in the window. her silhouette holding up the phone, angling the frame as if she wanted to memorialize the moment. I felt my breath stall. The room seemed smaller, hotter, the air suddenly too thin. Still, I wasn't finished. Something pushed me into the garage, straight to her car. I opened the trunk, expecting maybe nothing, maybe something small, maybe something I could pretend wasn't what it was. Instead, I found a car wash receipt dated just 2 days prior. Odd, because she never washed her car unless I reminded her. Next to it was a men's razor. Not a disposable. Not the cheap kind. A heavy, chrome-handled razor, the type that comes in a travel grooming kit. The kind a man takes with him when he expects to stay somewhere overnight and wants to look good doing it. My fingers went numb as I stared at it. It wasn't mine. I had never seen it before. Yet here it was, in the trunk of my wife's car, nestled like a secret that had been waiting for me to finally stop looking away. I leaned against the bumper, breathing slow and ragged, fighting to keep my legs steady. I didn't know whether to drop the razor or throw it or scream. Instead, I just held it like holding it might somehow give me answers the world refused to offer. Then I remembered the email. I pulled the phone out again and opened the confirmation for the river loft stay. At the top was a promotional image of the cabin's entrance. A glass door, rustic wooden deck, greenery behind it. A nice place. A place couples booked. But there, barely noticeable, was the reflection in the corner of the door. A woman's outline. Her jacket. Her backpack. The same one with the lipstick smudge. She had taken the picture herself, probably to send to him or to save for later, or maybe just out of some twisted excitement she wasn't getting from me anymore. Whatever the reason, it didn't matter. That reflection was the final nail. The last breath of doubt leaving my body. This wasn't insecurity. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't me imagining worst-case scenarios. This was fact. A confirmation. A booking for 2. A shared transaction. A razor in her trunk. Her reflection in the doorway of a cabin she should never have been at. She hadn't just drifted into someone else's arms. She had been building a routine, a schedule, a second life. A world where she wasn't my wife anymore. Where she was someone else entirely, answering to someone who wasn't me. And as much as it shattered something inside me, there was also a strange clarity to it. A cruel kind of peace. Because at least now I wasn't guessing anymore. At least now, I wasn't the fool trying to piece together breadcrumbs while she rewrote our marriage into a story where I was the bitter, controlling one. The truth was here. Solid. Complete. And now that I had it, things would never be the same. The next morning, I woke up early and didn't waste a second. While she was still asleep upstairs, I started printing. Every email, every receipt, every booking confirmation, the river loft stay, the lakeside haven transaction under the name D.M. The man in her secret photos, the cabin reflection photo, where her outline was captured in the glass like some accidental ghost of guilt, the car wash receipt, the razor. But I didn't stop there. I went into her fitness app. She'd connected it to our home laptop months ago when she needed help setting it up, and like most things, she forgot to disable the sync. I pulled her route history from the day she told me she was at a morning yoga retreat. The GPS trail showed something very different. No yoga studio, no gym, just a straight-line route from our home to the river cabin and back again. No detours, no friends involved. It all went into a manila folder. Organized. Chronological. Labeled. Not for drama, but for truth. No rage. No yelling. Just facts. By the time Kelsey came downstairs, I had already left the house. She thought it was a normal day. She had no idea I was about to walk into her little theater and tear down the stage. I drove to the cafe she always claimed was her workspace. She told me this was where she coordinated client projects, met collaborators, and scheduled coffee brainstorms. I'd even stopped by once before. She hadn't been there, but she claimed she had just stepped out. This time I knew better. As I walked in, I scanned the place quickly and saw her. Far corner. Cozy booth. Same spot as always. A latte in front of her, half finished. She wasn't alone. Next to her sat the man from the photos D.M. the guy in the rooftop bar picture. And across from them sat someone I recognized faintly, her friend Jordan. The one who always seemed to know where Kelsey was. The one who once told me, "She needs more freedom." The three of them were laughing. She leaned in toward D.M. like they were sharing a secret. Her hand brushed his wrist in that casually int asterisk mate way people don't realize they're doing when they're comfortable. He smiled at her like they had history, like this was normal. Until he saw me. Until she saw me. Everything stopped. The smile fell off her face like a mask. Her body froze. D.M. straightened up. Jordan shrank into the booth like she wanted to vanish. I walked over slowly. No rage. No shouting. Just the envelope in my hand. I slid it onto the table and stood there. Kelsey stared at it like it was a live wire. "What is that?" she asked, her voice already tense. "Proof," I said calmly. "Of everything." D.M. looked at her, then at me, then back at the envelope. "Wait, what is this?" "You'll find out," I said. "Start with page 3. That's the River Loft receipt. Nice place." His expression shifted. He turned toward her. "You told me you were separated." She said nothing. "Jesus, Kelsey," he muttered. Jordan stood up, mumbled something about needing to use the restroom, and disappeared. Kelsey still hadn't moved. Her hand hovered over the envelope. Her eyes locked on mine. "You're making a scene," she hissed. "No, I'm delivering a reality check. I can explain." "You don't need to. It's all there. Receipts, photos, GPS data, booking confirmations. You should recognize the reflection in the cabin door, unless that's a coincidence too." She finally reached for the envelope. Her fingers shook. She opened it slowly, as if each page would bite. She skimmed. Her face dropped further with every line of text. Is this really necessary?" she said finally. "I don't know, Kelsey. Was it necessary to lie to me for months? To take our shared money and use it to book cabins with someone else? To try and paint me as controlling so you could make a clean exit?" She said nothing. D.M. stood up. "I had no idea she was married." I nodded. "Now you do." He backed away, not even finishing his drink, and walked out the door. Just like that. No big farewell. No defense. No illusions. Kelsey sat alone. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she whispered. I tilted my head. "Didn't mean for what to happen?" "Exactly?" Her eyes welled up. It wasn't like I planned it at first. But then you did plan it." More silence. "I was going to tell you," she said, barely audible. "I just didn't know how." "No. You were going to make me the bad guy first. That's what all the stories were for. The little jabs about control. The fake victimhood. You were setting the scene so when you left, you'd come out clean." "That's not fair." "What's not fair is building an escape route through deceit, using my money, while lying to my face and expecting to be protected from the consequences." Her voice cracked. "You were distant. You stopped seeing me. I felt invisible." I stared at her. "You chose to disappear. You can't blame me for not recognizing the mask you kept putting on." She covered her face with her hands. "I wanted to feel alive again. And you did that by *ling us." There was nothing left to say. I stood up and turned away. She didn't follow. I think part of her thought I still might turn back. That I might sit down and let her spin another story. But not this time. "Mark," she called after me. I paused. "You're not even going to talk this through?" I looked back at her, sitting there with the evidence of her lies spread in front of her like broken glass. "No, I did all the talking. You just weren't listening." And then I walked out, didn't slam the door, didn't look back. She had spent months scripting a tragedy where she was the misunderstood hero and I was the oppressive villain. But the moment I laid the truth out in public, she realized her story didn't work when facts entered the room. The silence didn't last long. After the cafe, after the whole ugly truth was laid out in daylight, Kelsey changed tactics almost immediately. She didn't yell. She didn't beg. Not at first. That would have been too obvious. Instead, she retreated behind a new mask, the remorseful, fragile wife who had lost herself and was now ready to come home. The same woman who had carefully engineered an escape behind my back was suddenly the one leaving handwritten notes on the counter. One was folded into the shape of a heart. Inside, she'd written in her messy, looped cursive, "You were always my home. I got lost. I'm sorry I broke us." Another note was taped next to an old photo, us from years ago on a beach in Oregon. The caption, "Can we ever be this again?" Each attempt was soaked in nostalgia and the scent of guilt. But it wasn't for healing. It was strategy, a desperate rewrite. When the notes didn't work, she tried pulling me back with shared memories, playing our songs through the speakers, cooking my favorite dinners and leaving them on the stove like some silent invitation to forgive. She lit the candle we bought on our honeymoon and placed it in the living room. When I asked her why it was out, she shrugged and said, "It just felt right." But it didn't. None of it did. Because it wasn't real. It was performance. I barely responded. She tried talking casually, asking how my day was, mentioning a documentary she thought I'd like, complimenting my shirt. I gave short answers and left the room. She'd linger for a second, then go quiet. That's when she tried closeness. She started sitting beside me on the couch when she never used to, brushing past me in the kitchen and letting her hand graze mine. Wearing the perfume I once told her made her unforgettable. Now it just made the air feel heavy. She smiled too softly, touched too deliberately. Every action was a line from a rehearsed script. Look how close we used to be. I started locking the door to the guest room at night. The second night she knocked. "I just thought maybe we could talk," she said through the door. "You used to let me in." I stared at the knob and said calmly, "You used to tell the truth." She didn't knock again. The next morning, everything shifted again. Gone were the heart-shaped notes and soft perfume. Instead, she turned cold, sharp. She accused me of being cruel, of emotionally abandoning her, of punishing her after she apologized. That became her mantra. I said I'm sorry, as if those 4 words dissolved everything. As if they were a cure-all for betrayal. She told mutual friends she was trying her best, and that I was shutting her out. I got a message from our friend Rebecca that said, "She's hurting. Maybe you could meet her halfway?" I stared at that message for 5 minutes before replying. She had an affair. I was already halfway. She walked in the opposite direction. And that was the truth. When guilt didn't get her anywhere, she moved to desperation. One evening, I pulled into the driveway and found her sitting on the porch, hugging herself like she was cold, even though it was warm out. Tears were already in her eyes. "I don't want to lose you," she said when I stepped out of the car. "You already did." "I'll do anything," she said. "Therapy, counseling. I'll delete everything. I'll block him. I'll cut everyone off. Just please." I looked her in the eye. I asked for honesty. "You gave me theater." She flinched. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared." "Of what?" "Of being the bad guy." "You still became one," I said, walking past her. That was the moment it ended for me. Not logically, emotionally. Something inside me shut off. A switch I didn't even realize I could flip. I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry. I just felt done. But she still wasn't finished. A few days later, I found her in the driveway talking to our neighbor. She was crying again. "I just wish he'd talk to me," she said. "I've been trying. He won't even look at me." Our neighbor glanced at me when I walked up, gave me this confused, slightly judgmental look. That night, I checked her social media. She had changed her profile picture to us from 2 years ago, one of our best days. The caption on her new post read, "Love is worth fighting for. Don't give up too soon." The comments were flooded with people cheering her on. "You too are perfect. True love never fails. You got this, girl." I sat on the couch reading every comment like it was a punch to the gut. She was writing a new story. One where she was the devoted wife, heartbroken and trying to patch things up. Not the one who had erased me from her life while still sleeping under my roof. She wasn't owning what she did. She was branding it. And when public sympathy didn't produce a reconciliation, she doubled down. She started planting little seeds. She told Rebecca I'd been emotionally controlling. She told our landlord she was concerned about volatility and that we should both be contacted about future property discussions. She was preparing a narrative, not to fix things but to protect her image. She didn't want to repair the damage. She wanted to control the optics. I refused to participate. I didn't retaliate online. I didn't respond to her concerns with mutuals. I didn't deny or confirm anything. I just let it sit. Because the truth doesn't need to shout. It just needs to be present. And one by one, her tactics failed. People noticed she was acting. That her behavior shifted depending on who she was talking to. That her smiles looked painted on. That she was tagging me in posts I never appeared in and telling stories that didn't match the facts. Even her lies got tired. She once slammed the front door on her way out, then waited in the driveway for 10 minutes, waiting for me to chase her. I didn't. She came back inside without a word. Eventually, she stopped posting about us. The friends stopped asking questions. The neighbors stopped looking at me funny. And the messages from mutual acquaintances got fewer and fewer. I didn't win. That's not what this was. She just lost control. Because I wasn't going to be part of her script anymore. And when the audience leaves and the co-star quits, the show collapses. That's what happened next. She went quiet. Not because she accepted it, but because the act wasn't working anymore. And without a role to play, she had nothing left to offer. I closed our joint accounts, froze shared assets, and began drafting a clean exit. She tried everything. Tears, guilt, even threats. But none of it landed. Within weeks, I listed the house. She moved into a cramped apartment near a strip mall. I rented, then bought a modest home on a quiet street. No drama, no revenge, just peace. I rebuilt slowly on my terms. Then, I met someone who didn't make honesty feel like a negotiation. Months later, I passed Kelsey near a Pilates studio. She paused like she might say something, maybe start her script again. I didn't stop. I nodded politely and kept walking. No anger. No words. Just clarity. She once wrote our story around my silence. Now I owned it. I wasn't her villain or her excuse. I was simply free. For the first time, she wasn't in control of the ending, and I no longer needed to be part of it.